identities of people I was in camp with, I went to school with, authorities above him, and you can understand why he would change those names. But he also says that some of the details of the book had to be changed. And so, I mean, it raises those questions, right? So which of these things are in fact truthful, which have been changed, which are amalgams of various things that had happened to him or other people. And so, he says that on balance, this is a true depiction of what it was like, but we know that much of it has been changed. And so, I think that's something for us to think about. When he, recalling the events of a particular hazing or a particular relationship with someone, or his various coming out narratives to other individuals, how much of those have been constructed for the sake of telling a narrative in a particular way, making a particular point that he's trying to make at a time, and not. And then the other thing is that you have to think about the memoir as the unreliable narrative, right? I mean, we try to remember what we did last Friday night, and as accurately as we think we've remembered it, we know that we often get things wrong, right? This is things he's remembering from his childhood, from 7 years ago when he went into this first year of camp. And so, how much can we rely on those things as part of the memoir? And this is not to say, therefore, it's all a lie or discounted, but I'm saying that it is a factor for us in determining what we take from what he says as a memoir.
Yeah, this is one thing that perhaps if you were thinking about creative expression, my hope, of course, is that students will take the creative expression assignment and get as much out of it as they can, relate a lot of their experience to like many people is going through in various transitions, but because my nightmares and I'm going to get 80 photo montages of his abs. So because the assignment is pretty broad, suggesting something like, maybe write your own memoir, or something like that might be a good alternative. I'm going to throw up a lot of people sort of suggesting offhand a lot of different ways of constructing the class, and I'm going to go through and put some of those on the web. So as instructor resources, so that everybody will have that. And there are other, there are many different ways of approaching this. Some people like to sprinkle in references to the book in all different kinds of classes. For example, academic success, writing is thrown into chemistry and he fails his first semester. I'm sure students in chemistry, you just failed that chemistry 131 exam, will have some connection to that. So there are lots of different ways of doing this, and I thank you for all your suggestions. And at this point, let's just have a couple of questions from you folks. What would you like to hear from the panel? What are your concerns? What would you like to have your class do? Any ideas? Any questions from those of the handful of you read them?
Can I just say something? Because I like to talk. So I feel like we have to look at how we're viewing this book. It's kind of like comparing his book to like War and Peace, is to like the real world is The Godfather. So The Godfather is a classic and a great movie with a great director. And the real world is a reality television show that is telling people's stories. So while War and Peace is a classic, his book will never be a classic. But it's telling his story. And people will love his book the same way they love reality television. He's telling a good story, and there's a good point to him telling his story. So for those of you that decide after you read it that you don't enjoy the book, I feel like you kind of have to just let go of that and get across to your class that it's not, a literary expert isn't going to love this book, but someone who enjoys hearing people's stories will, regardless of whether his editors let him down or not, which I think they did. You have to get past that and just realize that the point of this book is so good. And how are you going to get that point across in your 101 classes? So, using Snooki.
Yeah, I think a good assignment that the kids could probably use is compare and contrast what they thought about the topic before and after they read the book, and how exactly the book moved them to think differently or act differently.
Agreed.
Given the specificity of the content, I imagine it will not resonate with a lot of different people. And it seems to me too that he expresses a lot of strong beliefs, which again are beliefs and not facts. So it would seem to me that it would be easier to approach it more as a memoir, not as a dictate, and maybe as a way to understand that we all see the world differently. This is how he sees it. And while, however strongly he may be expressing it, that doesn't mean that's how we should see it. But I guess my group earlier was talking about diversity and how to convey, or actually I guess how to really appreciate diversity and understand one another's views. And I wonder if this might give the opportunity to do that, to see that he thinks about it this way, and that's okay. I don't. I think about it in this way. But what we have in common is that we each have our own view.
So I just have a question on page 89. I really love the memoir English that you've been bringing out. It really has helped me a lot. I struggle with how judgmental he is and how he gives lots of what are facts, and I feel that critically he has given no facts behind it. And so do you think that in this class that we should be teaching, or is it important to teach kids that students to be critical thinkers? Is that an important component in this? I mean, whether they're watching Jersey Shore or whatever, we should be saying, we should be teaching as Americans, as citizens, as people in this world, we should be questioning, just because you say this, tell me the facts behind it. Do you think that's important when we bring this up in the class? Or do we just say it's a memoir and so be it? Because that's my struggle as of page 89.
Yes.
I mean, there are points at which he does try and get back to things, particularly when you get later, he's in the academy, he's saying this is how things are done. And when he says that this is the practice, this is the structure, and we sort of, I take him at his word, those kind of things. But I don't think we want to say it's just a memoir, so it's just an opinion, so that's fine. It's true, everybody has an opinion, and people can hold their opinion, but it is also true that not all opinions are equal. So if it is my opinion that peanut butter is the best food on earth, or if it's my opinion that the sky is orange, I have to be able to justify how I arrived at that opinion, and I may or may not reassess that opinion. So when he does express many opinions, and so I think we have to, and this is where I started with the assumptions, right? They're often predicated on certain assumptions that go unexamined, right? And so I think that one of the things I think we need to do is to say, well, when he says, I am of the belief that God made me and everyone else gay or straight, well, what is our assumptions? Why does he believe this? What kinds of evidence does he provide for that? And therefore, do we accept his opinion or not? If I'm of a different opinion from him, why have I arrived at that conclusion? Why do I hold that belief? What is it predicated on? So I think that's one of the important things to do. It's not about, throwing facts on the table and sort of lining them up. It's how do we arrive at those opinions? What do we predicate on? What beliefs do we hold?
Because that's so important in life.
Yes, absolutely.
That's the life skill, rather than him saying, because it drove me crazy. I sound like you, but he says the two guys who bullied me were gay because he just makes this,
Yep.
And he said even if they're happily married, I'm sure that they're still gay.
Right. That was one of those.
I feel like we need to teach students to be good consumers and question what people say.
And so that's why I think about the idea about being critical.
And if I can give a quick plug for the civility chapter, the kind of argumentation, reasoning, and evidence that we lay out in there is exactly mirrored in your response. So that's maybe one place where you can get students to do both at once, talk about the book and think about reasoning and evidence.
I just have one little thing to say. I mean, I agree with what Eric said. Nobody's ever going to compare this with War and Peace, and
That's but I do think that each of us are going to have a different reaction to the book the same way that all of the students are going to have a different reaction. So to frame it as we should all be pro the book and say this is fantastic, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that everybody's going to have a different response to the book, and I think it's okay to be honest about it. The way we're asking our students who are reading it to form an opinion and react to it, I think we are all going to have a different reaction and opinion to it. So I don't think that, you know, forming them all into the same mesh of let's be on the same page with this is necessarily the way to go.
One last question.
Yeah, I think, and Jeremy's point is good. I think it's okay not to like the book. A couple of years ago, I really struggled with the Billy Collins book. And there was no point. Well, and yeah, but that was I know that. And so, when I came out of the class, I felt I came at it very negatively. And I didn't want to give them the impression that there wasn't value there, but it goes into critical thinking, and it goes into, we actually had a discussion that year, is it okay not to like everything you read? And over the course of your next 4+ years, you're going to run into things you don't like. And to know how to react to that in a way that's logical, that makes sense, so that you can be productive, that you can get something productive out of it. I think that's what we want students to get out of the reader and why this program exists.
Thank you very much. We can feel free to talk to the panel afterwards if you have a burning question. And thank you very much. Chris has a couple names.
I just have safe space cards here. It gives a little bit of information about the safe space program that we have here at Stony Brook. If any of your students are actually just coming out, we are holding a coming out drop-in group at the Women's and Gender Resource Center, CPO. So the time and day is dependent on who comes up to us. So if they just come and see either me or Sue Burns, we'll be able to set up a time that works best for everyone. So these are here, and if there's any questions, we'll be here.
Great, thanks, Chris. And I'm going to turn it over to Susan again for our closing words.